New legislation unveiled today aims to put an end to the NSA's bulk collection of phone records, email, and internet data. And President Obama indicated that he would work with Congress to pass it, quote, quickly. Joining us now, the men behind the bipartisan bill, the top Republican and Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Chairman Mike Rogers and Ranking Member Dutch Ruppersberger. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Let me ask, first of all, how confident the two of you are, and I'll ask you first, Representative Rogers, how confident you are that this is going to pass.
I'm getting more confident by the day. I think the administration is moving toward our position. I think we've been working with the administration. They have language that Dutch and I have worked out over the last 9 months. So I feel confident that we're going to get, this is going to be the rally point where people can come together saying it does end the government holding that metadata phone records. That bothered a lot of people, and still has a way forward to protect American lives by catching terrorists calling into the United States.
So if I understand this correctly, and I'll ask you, Congressman Ruppersberger, that the NSA will no longer collect bulk phone data, for example. They'll have to have a reason and prove it to some sort of FISA court, I guess, that they need to collect data connected to one phone number or other phone numbers collected to that phone number. Is that the case?
That's correct. Yes. What we really, the concern was, I think Mike and I agreed that the program that we had, the metadata program that NSA had, that it was a legal program. There was absolutely no evidence there were any abuses. But there was a perception to the public that they didn't trust the program. And it's important that not only do we have the programs that will protect us from terrorist attacks and protect our national security, but also that we have privacy and that we care very much about that. So Mike and I for the last 9 months, and we come up with this plan where basically the government will no longer hold the bulk collection, that the bulk collection will stay with the phone companies where it is now. They have to hold the information that they have for 18 months pursuant to FCC regulations, but this is what they do. And what we would basically do is have an administrative subpoena, and we would have to pass a test called reasonable articulable suspicion, called the RAS test, to show that there was some suspicion that we needed to get this information. An example, a terrorist calling from Yemen in the United States. That would be a reasonable articulable suspicion that we need to check that out to see that there's no terrorist attack. But the other issue, which is important too, is that the court will review this right after we ask for that information.
But the interesting thing is that this information will still be collected. So, Congressman Rogers, I mean, is there any way, Congressman Rogers, is there any way for me to make a phone call, send an email, or use the internet without someone collecting and keeping my personal information?
Yes, absolutely. That will not happen. Matter of fact, there is a ban on there for internet metadata as well as phone metadata. So it is very specific that that metadata is all banned. And so when you say someone's collecting, that's just not true. So they're not getting Americans' email metadata. They won't be getting phone metadata. So the only way they get it is they have a number from a known terrorist overseas, and they go to the they go to submit that to the court, and they get the information on that particular phone number. That's it. So if you're making a call to Aunt Sally, your girlfriend, whatever, ordering pizza, that will not be collected by the NSA. And by the way, it wasn't collected before,
but it will be collected by the phone company.
Very clear in this.
But
they do that today. Your phone company has that data today. It's just that NSA won't have any access to that information.
The NSA will not have the data. But I'm glad you raised the issue, because other national media outlets have said the same thing. This information is what the phone company has every day in order for them to represent you, and they are your carrier. So we don't collect, they're not collecting it for us. This information has always been there. And all we're doing is getting an administrative subpoena on an individual case, giving it to the phone companies and say, we need these numbers. Nobody's name, address, or anything. And then if it looks like those numbers are relevant, or they pass the test, reasonable articulable suspicion, then the FBI will look further, and if they need be, they will go to the courts if they needed to do more. But that's important that it's collected by the company.
Let me just say this. This is the biggest misperception we face, that the NSA was somehow recording all of Americans' phone calls and listening to your cell phone. No, not happening, against the law. That they were collecting all of your emails and had content to your emails. No, not happening. Now it's illegal. So we put that very clearly in the law that that cannot happen. And so this is really, really important. So what we've done now is the government before would take all of that metadata from phone companies, lock it away, and then we had a whole series of protections in order for them to even search the database. Now the NSA is not even going to get that information. We're only going to base it on the information from the call overseas into the United States. 555-1212. They go to the phone companies and say, we want to know who this number is talking to. If it fits that test that Dutch just talked about, then it goes to the FBI for further investigation. So there are multiple layers of protections built into this.
Right. Although my next concern is that Verizon and Google keep my information for so long, but I guess that's not something you take up.
But they already do that.
They haven't now.
Understood.
We're asking for an individual case.
Understood. I'd love it if they would change that.
Before they'd have it. Well, you know what? If you don't want them to have it, then you don't have to use them, and you won't be able to make a phone call. That's the bottom line.
I got it. So someone, no matter what, is going to keep my data at least for 18 months. That's something that's not going to change.
No, not only that, but you're paying Verizon or AT&T to have, because you want to use their services to make a phone call.
And remember, these are business records. This is metadata business records. It's not content, none of that. They've had this since phones were invented. That's how this whole system developed on phone calls. And it's been a criminal statute in this country for 3 decades. It's called trap and trace or pen register information. So this isn't unusual at all in any way. Those business records are required by the FCC to make sure that you're being appropriately billed, candidly, and law enforcement has used it for 30 years to catch gangsters and pornographers and drug dealers, and the only thing that's happening now is the NSA is able to track a foreign number coming in with a legal instrument. That's it. This is really not anything we should be excited about. It's been going on for 30 years.
How closely, Congressman Ruppersberger, how closely is this jibe with what the president wants to do? I know that he wants to pass something quickly. Is your bill and his thinking, are those aligned?
Yes, we're very, very close. We're not there 100%. Chairman Rogers and I, Mike and I, met with the leadership of the White House yesterday. We both realized that we need to protect the privacy and have a perception to the public that the NSA is protecting them and not violating any privacy rules. But we also know that we have to protect ourselves from terrorist attacks. We knew what happened in 9/11. We look at the unsophisticated bombers in Massachusetts who were totally unsophisticated. Al-Qaeda is very sophisticated, and they want to attack us or our allies every day of the week if they could. And we're there and have systems together to stop us without violating privacy. That's what this does. It's a major issue that the government will no longer have bulk collection. That's key. That's a major issue in this legislation.
That's huge. That's what people were concerned about, and we've addressed it.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing that sort of was added, and the NSA bulk collection issue for sure was the meat of this issue, but it's the whole spying scandal has grown because of Dianne Feinstein's revelations and what the CIA. Does this in any way address that, Chairman Rogers?
No, that's a whole separate issue that has to be weeded out. I know they've got internal reviews and other things. That's got to get worked out. And that was an isolated incident. This is not a pattern that we've found in all of our oversight of the CIA and their operations around the world in dangerous places. And that's a different issue. So we dealt with the 215 metadata collection program in this bill. And that's the one that caused the most angst. Not because they did something wrong, but because they said, well, it could be abused. So even though the program was legal and overseen and had 17 judges and 37 different legal opinions say yes, it's legal and constitutional, we decided that in order to rebuild confidence that we would find a way for this to work and at least have Americans relieved that the NSA, if that was their concern, was holding this metadata, no names, mind you, but the metadata from these phone calls. So we worked our way through it. It's very specific to this issue.
I understand. You know, the interesting thing, the kind of catch-22 to all of this is that covert operations are just that, and that's what the two of you gentlemen oversee. Now, I realize they have to operate within a legal framework, and this is what you're trying to structure. But how difficult is it to do that when you're dealing with covert operations?
Well, we have established, since I became chairman, Dutchess became ranking member, we put back into place regular oversight function of covert action, and it is the most sensitive work the United States intelligence services do. It needs lots of scrutiny and lots of oversight. And by the way, they welcome it. They want to follow the law. So this isn't a tug between our, the CIA and the intelligence agencies and what we do. We have full access to these programs. We oversee these programs. We ask them